Madam Vice Chair and members of the Commission, we are now live.
Good evening. Welcome, everyone. My name is Karen Burdett. I am the acting chair tonight. Oops, I'm sorry. I should know. There we go. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Karen Burdett, and I am the vice chair and acting chair tonight of the HPC. This is the May 22nd, 2024 Historic Preservation Meeting. As is our custom, I would like our commission and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Mark Dominiani, Commissioner.
Zara Nasser.
Jeffrey Haynes.
Commissioner Doman.
Cristina Arado.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
Chris Berger, Historic Preservation Staff.
And Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you. And again, as Ms. Ballo said, please, if you are going to testify tonight, please sign in and fill out the form and give it to her. Have the historic area work permits been duly advertised?
Yes, they were advertised in the May 8th edition of the Washington Times.
Okay. We are going to start with the expedited hops, the ones that have been, we feel, can be voted on and approved without any commentary. And then we'll move on to the hops that are going to be heard. So if there is no opposition to any of the hops that are going to be expedited, oh, yes, I'm sorry. Find my paper. All right. Our expedited hops tonight are 1A at 12 East Melrose Street, Chevy Chase, 1B at 5918 Cedar Parkway, Chevy Chase, 1C at 3705 Underwood Street, Chevy Chase, 1F at 30 Hesketh Street, Chevy Chase, 1G at 10124 Meadow Neck Court, Silver Spring.
Madam Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with staff reports based upon the record before us in consideration of the recommendations of the local advisory panels and including the conditions recommended by staff.
Is there a second on this motion?
Hang on.
Oh,
Hop number 1066558 at 12 East Melrose Street, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1067000 at 5918 Cedar Parkway, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1064284 at 3705 Underwood Street, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1068788 at 30 Hesketh Street, Chevy Chase. And hop number 1068991 at 10124 Meadow Neck Court, Silver Spring.
do I have a second on this motion?
This is Commissioner Arado. I second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Are there any abstentions? Are there any nays? This motion is passed. And thank you to everyone who prepared these hops that could be so easily approved. Moving on, we are moving on to the hops we're going to hear tonight, starting with 102 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. This is the staff report for HOP 1067931 at 102 East Kirk Street in Chevy Chase.
Excuse me, I don't have a screen. Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay. It's designated as an outstanding resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District, constructed circa 1910, and again, this is to be reviewed under the Chevy Chase Village Historic District Design Guidelines, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. So you can see it's on the eastern edge of the district line, of the historic district line. Just familiarize yourself with the property. So the applicant proposes to demolish the one-story L and rear deck, construct a two-story addition with a deck in the approximate location of the existing L, demolish the existing garage and construct a new one slightly to the south, construct a swimming pool and associated patio, replace several existing windows, and there are also some trees that will be removed as part of the proposal. 2 meetings ago, on April 17th, we held a preliminary consultation on this very same proposal. The HPC was supportive of the partial demolition and agreed that the size, scale, massing, and architectural details of the addition were compatible. They were supportive of demolishing the garage. No one raised objections to the fenestration alterations on the two-story L, and several commissioners recommended that the garage design be revised to include some of the architectural details from the historic one. So we'll quickly go through the plans. These are substantially the same plans that you saw at the preliminary consultation. You can see that stone piers were added to the deck, which was one of the other recommendations from some of the commissioners. Again, the one-story portion was to be demolished. Some existing and proposed views, and then the floor plans, and we can refer back to any of these, the new garage plans with the existing garage on the left. So staff finds that the proposal is generally consistent with the feedback provided by the HPC at the preliminary consultation, and staff recommends the HPC approve the partial demolition and two-story addition under the design guidelines and Chapter 24A8B2. Staff finds that the garage has deteriorated beyond repair and that the revised garage design is consistent with the HPC's feedback, and recommends that the demolition and new construction be approved under the design guidelines and 24A8B2 and standards 2, 9, and 10. Staff finds the proposed pool and patio are appropriately sized for the property and should be approved under a lenient scrutiny review per the design guidelines 24A8B2 and standards 2, 9, and 10. And staff finds the proposed window replacement will not have a significant impact on the character of the house or surrounding district and should be approved, again, per the design guidelines 24A8B2 and standard 2, provided the HPC includes a condition that the applicant submits detailed drawings of the sunroom windows and the proposed replacement windows for review and approval, and staff recommends that final approval authority be delegated to staff. Additionally, staff finds the proposed tree removals will not significantly impact the character of the site and surrounding district, and that the district's overall park-like setting will be retained. The primary reason we're here is to discuss the materials proposed for the new deck on the western side. And the applicant provided 2 materials for consideration. One was Acre, which is a manufactured product made primarily of rice hulls, and Aratus Heritage decking, and then uses a Liberty extruded PVC railing. Staff found that neither of those materials were appropriate and instead recommends the HPC require that these features be wood. Decks in Chevy Chase Village are to be reviewed under moderate scrutiny, which involves a higher standard of review than lenient scrutiny. Besides issues of massing, scale, and compatibility, preserving the integrity of the resource is taken into account. Alterations should be designed so that the altered structure still contributes to the district, and the use of compatible new materials rather than original building materials should be permitted. Plan changes should be compatible with the structure's existing design, but should not be required to replicate its architectural style. And staff does not find that these materials are quote-unquote compatible new materials. In select instances where the HPC has approved Aratus in its location, that location is where the substitute material does not touch historic fabric. So that's either on a non-contributing resource or as a deck or a porch that abuts non-historic construction or building addition. In this instance, the proposed material will be adjacent to the new addition, but it will also abut the historic side porch. The HPC also received comments from the Chevy Chase Village LAP. I believe those comments were received yesterday. We'll go over those quickly. So the Chevy Chase LAP concurs with most of the staff recommendations, but disagrees with a special condition requiring that the new deck and railing be made out of wood. The LAP recommends that the HPC approve the use of the compatible materials for the deck and railing rather than wood for the following reasons. staff states that the Chevy Chase Village design guidelines require that the proposed deck for an outstanding resource needs to be reviewed under moderate scrutiny, and that because the new deck will touch a portion of the historic house, wood should be used. However, the design guideline only requires moderate scrutiny if visible from the right-of-way. If not visible, lenient scrutiny should be used. In fact, the current non-historic deck is, and its proposed replacement will be, totally shielded from the public right-of-way. There is a 6-foot-high ivy-covered wooden stockade fence that runs along the western side of the property along Brookville Road from the front plane of the house to the rear of the property. It is impossible for a pedestrian or driver to see the deck. Consequently, under lenient scrutiny, comparable substitute materials to wood should be permitted. They go on to say, even under moderate scrutiny, the Chevy Chase Village design guidelines acknowledge that the use of comparable new materials rather than the original building materials should be permitted. Here, the owners only propose to replace a non-historic deck, construct a non-historic deck, with one that only touches the historic structure. The use of a wood substitute for a new deck is compatible with the existing historic structure and should be permitted even under moderate scrutiny. And then finally, it says the HPC has noted that after reviewing several projects, it found that wood flooring exposed to weather failed after a few years. This is because domestic wood species available in the market for porch and flooring and decking is significantly weaker, less durable, and less rot resistant. So it is economically more reasonable and environmentally preferable for the owner to use a compatible substitute rather than wood for the new deck. So staff recommends that the HPC approve the HOP with 2 conditions. Those 2 conditions are the proposed substitute material for the deck and railing are not appropriate and must be wood, with final approval authority to verify that this condition has been satisfied, delegated to staff. And additionally, detailed drawings of the existing and proposed sunroom windows must be submitted with the final approval of documents, and that final approval authority to determine the replacement windows are compatible can be delegated to staff. And staff finds approval for these under the design guidelines 24A8B2 and D and standards 2, 9, and 10. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Radu?
Thank you for your presentation. About the comments from the LAP about their interpretation of like the guidelines requiring moderate scrutiny if visible from the right-of-way. I mean, fences, if this is not visible.
So I tend to disagree with their contention. I mean, we had a prior chair of the HPC who was known to stand on the roof of his car to see certain items. I don't take it that far, but as you see in the image in front of you, there is a crosswalk where it would take you to an iron gate at the property. From there, at an acute angle, you would be able to see that deck. So the language isn't at all visible from the public right-of-way, but that is visible from a public right-of-way. So staff contends that it should be reviewed under moderate scrutiny for that reason.
Thank you.
Commissioner Haynes?
What is the existing porch floor? What is the structure of that floor? Is that a wood frame floor? Or is that concrete?
It's concrete and I believe tile.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
Commissioner Doman, I may be misinterpreting. I thought that in instances when there may be some controversy in interpretation of some of the regulations, is that the local regulations would take priority. I may be wrong, but I thought that if we have a statement from the LAP stating that, that they believe that this is an acceptable product to be used on the residence, and if the LAP so deems it be acceptable, should not that be the priority criteria for deciding whether or not it's okay or not okay to put it on the house?
So the LAP is there to provide basically boots on the ground and provide additional feedback at the local level. They are providing their own opinion based on their experience and their perspective, but the HPC is the final arbiter of all of these decisions. So you can consider their testimony and you can give it significant weight, but they're not telling you what the law and the guidelines say. They're providing you with their opinion based on that. Additionally, it's when there is a conflict between the local guidelines and the standards. In those instances where the local guidelines and the standards appear to be in conflict, the local guidelines control. They would trump the Secretary of the Interior standards. So it still needs to be deemed compatible with the guidelines and 24A, but if there is something in the guideline that is explicitly counter to the standards, then you would be able to ignore the standards.
So what you're saying is that the opinion of the LAP in this case should be the ruling. I mean, we can use this in our decision-making process, but we can consider it an important input to it.
Well, again, this is submitted testimony, just like oral in-person testimony, and the HPC can decide how much weight they give that as part of their decision-making process.
And as far as appearance, I mean, the topic's been brought up that it's pretty well shielded and you can't see it, but maybe you could find a hole in a bush or something and can look at the deck. But my experience with these products is that they're indistinguishable. You paint them and they're indistinguishable from wood. I mean, from 5 feet away, 1 foot away, or 20 feet away, you can't tell the difference.
Is there a question for staff at this point?
Any other questions for staff? If not, I have a brief question. This whole issue's arising because this new deck is touching the historic house, correct? So if it was not touching the house,
I mean, the way that we have evaluated these is the impact on the historic fabric. So if it were separated, it would still be in the same view shed. So I don't think that would change. If it was separated by 2 feet, you would still see the historic fabric immediately in front of it. Ordinarily, when the HPC has approved a Radis, in most instances, that is on a rear deck that touches an addition. There have been select instances where it has been approved on the front, but those have all been non-contributing resources that are out of the period of significance for the district.
and this is on a side, not the rear completely, but on the side, along, partially visible from a right-of-way.
Correct.
And that would be walking primarily because you just can't slow down enough at that location to see it from a car.
Correct, and the guidelines say that the HPC is supposed to review things irrespective of vegetation, but they haven't provided any insight as to whether or not you're supposed to consider the fence as an equivalent feature, or if that can be determined to be screening something completely from view. Staff took no position on that, but just additional considerations as part of how the HPC, how individual commissioners decide to vote on this.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more questions, Commissioner Haynes.
I'm looking at the elevation of the side, the existing side porch with the, yes. Is the proposed deck is on stone piers, and then there's a plank board in between. Is that also being considered here, or is it just the horizontal deck surface?
Well, so the whole project is up for consideration. The primary concern was specifically the decking material and railing. So I mean, we're holding a hearing. The HPC hasn't approved anything related to this project as yet. So if there are other things that you would like to focus on, that's certainly your prerogative. But staff tailored this presentation because the decking and the railing were specifically opposed by the project representative.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for staff? If not, I'll ask the applicant to come forward to give a presentation, answer questions. Hello again. Please identify yourself. Make sure your mic is on, by the way. Identify yourself and your relationship to this project.
Luke Olson, GTM Architects. We're the designer for the project and the representatives for the owners, Will and Britt Williams. Generally speaking, we were supportive of everything that staff has laid out. It's really just this one decking question. And it really came up once we received the feedback from the Chevy Chase Village, a local advisory panel. We understand them. They have a better understanding of how these rules should be interpreted. And given that information, we generally agree with their statement. I guess when we dig into moderate scrutiny and we talk about compatible new materials rather than original building materials, the original building material for this is wood. So if we were replacing in kind, it would be wood. So I feel like the only definition for a compatible new material would be something other than wood. And I believe that the commission is reviewing deck guidelines kind of along those lines currently, and we've tailored our selection to try to follow what's currently being considered in terms of an acceptable replacement material in this sort of situation. I also think it's worth pointing out that this is a clear way to differentiate new from old, which is also a priority in additions such as these. We've done a lot of things to do that, but another clear way to do that is to use a different material. And I'd also just say that regarding the fence issue and the viewpoint, that fence extends pretty far along this property to the point where when you finally do have a view, it is a partial view, it's oblique, and it's pretty far away from this deck. It's a horizontal surface. So when we get into visibility of that particular aspect, I don't think it's necessarily particularly visible, especially to the layperson. The railing is going to be painted, and I tend to agree with some of the statements that Commissioner Doman started to make, that once these materials are painted, they look exactly the same. And a lot of our historic applications, we're using new materials and painting them, and then they've been found acceptable. And we would ask that you consider that on this one.
Can you take questions now? Yes.
Absolutely.
Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Doman.
Yeah, to follow up, the question was about the band board that goes above the pillars that have been put in there, and then the decking's on top, but there's a band board. What do you envision that band board to be constructed of?
We prefer to use a composite trim for that band board and skirting, but we defer to the commission on the appropriateness of final materials there. If absolutely necessary, that could be wood and it could be painted, and it's a vertical surface rather than a horizontal surface, so it's less likely to rot out as quickly as the decking. But the decking itself just is going to have standing water on it. It's been our experience that those things just don't last no matter what you select.
I understand. How about the staircase that I see in this drawing that's in front of us? The short, maybe maybe six treads. What do you propose for that?
It would be the same materials as the deck for the treads, and then the face would be whatever material we're using for the skirting, preferably a composite material such as boral or azek.
And have you used, we're talking about Airtis and or Acre. Have you used any of these products in other applications, and do you have any experience as to longevity?
We've used Airtis. I believe there's a project in 2012 at 3923 Washington Street in the Kensington Historic District, and the rear deck on that and the side deck as well were both Airtis, if I remember. I haven't heard any complaints. I drive by it occasionally. We do have another project down the street, so I can check in on it the next time I'm there. But I think it's holding up great. I do know that in other historic projects where we've had some sort of other composite material that they've tended to last. In fact, we presented another case 2 meetings ago where it was a historic deck product well, it's a composite deck product from, I think, the 90s, and it still is in pretty great shape.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Haynes?
Following that train of thought, what is the horizontal planking between the stone piers? Is that also intended to be a composite?
Ideally, yes. That skirting is what I was referring to there, would be a gapped composite material that would have enough rigidity that it's not going to bow or bend, but also we'd be able to provide some ventilation there.
And how critical is it that this new deck tie into the historic porch?
It's not something that we discussed with our client, and so if you're talking about potentially holding it off 2 feet, I would have to ask them whether they would accept that condition. My sense is that they'd rather get our approvals now with the wood decking and then come back with an application for a revision to hold it off and change the decking to something else, if that's what required us to get a different decking material. I just, without talking to them about it, I can't say for sure if they care about that connection.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? No? Okay. Any comments? Commissioner Radu?
I agree with the architect about the distinguishing between like the historic, and this is still an addition. I understand that it abuts the historic property, but so does in many additions which we allow other materials like hardy planks or other materials, we allow them. So to me, it seems like this is a compatible material. It is an addition. I wouldn't agree to replace if the deck at the porch, at the historic porch, would be wood and they would ask for replacement. I would disagree with that. But it is an addition, hardly visible. So I don't see. I mean, I think this is a compatible material.
Commissioner Doman?
I guess I've spoken on this issue before. I'll speak on it again. I see absolutely no reason why this product can't be used. I'm all in favor of the commission adapting to utilization of new and more permanent materials on decking and or also for skirt boards and other items like that. I think this is the way of the trend is going. We have received comments from other LAPs also questioning the use of wood or the demand that the HPC puts out that it has to be wood. I think we have to move forward. There are new products out there. I've personally seen the Aratus at Oak Alley outside of New Orleans. It's been there for 7 years. It's painted. You cannot tell that it's not wood. It is a perfect replica, and it's durable. It has stood up. The people down there, if you talk to them, they will tell you that this is the best product. And I'm also in favor of Acres also, as far as I can tell, a very good product is being used in other homes also in this area. So I disagree with the staff report on item number 1, that it has to be wood, and I would approve this HOP, deleting item number 1, but keeping everything else seems to have been satisfied by the architect and by the homeowner. Thank you.
Commissioner Haynes?
Given the view from the street, from the sidewalk, I think it would be difficult to actually see the deck surface, given the height of the deck. But that said, I was never quite satisfied with the way the new deck touches the historic porch, and therefore my earlier question does it need to be connected? And could it be separate from the historic porch? I understand the new deck is off of a family room, but it seems like the real action on this addition is the backyard, the pool area. Yes, the deck is sizable that you could have tables and chairs out there, certainly, and access down to the yard. I would be more favorable to composites if the new deck stopped basically at the corner of the family room, and that there was a space, a gap between the historic and the new deck, and therefore it would not touch physically. I then could feel like I'd be more adaptable to using composites for the railing. I don't think you're really going to see the deck from the street at eye level, even if the fence wasn't there and you could walk the entire length of that, just the horizontal perspective would be very difficult to see. So I don't think the deck itself would have an impact on the resource from the public right-of-way. But I do think that if it were disconnected and truly was its own element to the addition, it would help distinguish the addition from the historic resource. And I think it makes this problem go away.
Any other comments? Then I'll close this out with my comments. I was not here when this came for preliminary, so I can't really address any issues with the overall design that's already been discussed, other than the issue with this deck and the materials and the fact that it's touching that historic property or the historic structure. We are in the process of reviewing the materials for horizontal surfaces at decks and porches, and we've spent quite a lot of time on this, and it's not yet published, I guess I should say. If you'd come back in 2 weeks, it'd probably be published. But so that's kind of where we are. It is a significant topic. It has been for quite a while now. We are looking at materials. We are looking at how to handle this issue as related to the Secretary of the Interior standards with the historic districts, all the different historic districts that we address, and how to handle this on a case-by-case basis. But it hasn't been published yet. We're not there yet. We're still dealing with our existing regulations and criteria. I would say I agree with Commissioner Haynes that holding that deck off of the building, the historic building, by several feet would be one way to start addressing this. And because this is a horizontal surface, and it's technically in the rear of the house, but is visible, I'm leaning more towards not being very rigid on demanding you use, heart pine that's 200 years old and cured kind of thing. But I think that if we let you do this, then one, I think the owner should be looking at screening that deck, that side of the deck from view with additional plantings so that it isn't visible. And that's a technicality. We're splitting hairs here. So please understand, if I could be very rigorous about this, but we do understand what the issue is that everybody's having and where the technology is and where, the historic preservation commissions stand at this point. Those are my comments. Would somebody like to make a motion about this? Commissioner Haynes? Or, yes, ma'am.
Madam Vice Chair, The staff would like to offer a few additional thoughts for the commission. Whether or not we were dealing with a new policy, when there is a new material, a new substitute material proposed for the commission's review and approval, typically we ask for a material sample of that. Members of the Alternative Porch Flooring Committee have had the opportunity to handle the acre and some of the other materials, or is the acre that's being proposed, but other members of the commission have not. Again, in a case such as this, we would have, if we knew this was going to be a topic of conversation, would have asked for the material sample so that everybody could have considered its, durability, its weight, all of the material aspects of the product, and to see how they do or do not mimic wood, and what the construction methods for that material are. Understanding if there are other examples of other cases in Kensington that the applicant is aware of that they would like to submit as actual evidence for the commission to look at, having pictures of those. If there are other sites where these materials have been used, again, more evidence for the commissioners to consider, also for the staff to consider, and then for these elements of design as well. In the past, when issues like this have come up, either discrete design or material issues, the commissioners have in other cases voted to approve out the project except for that item under consideration, just to table it and to say that will come back at a later date with more information about aspects, A, B, C, and D that you would like to see. Or you can also approve it out as is, and the applicant can ask to amend the HOP to take in those other items, to look at other changes at a later date so they can prepare their building permit. These are some other options. The one I think the staff feels the most strongly about is having the material sample in the building for all of the commissioners to examine and to have more specific information about the constructability and how these materials are actually put together when it comes to a deck. We've put on acre, I believe, on a garage door once that was totally disconnected from the master plan site. So those are some things you could consider.
Thank you. I do like the idea. I know that you have put a lot of work into these plans and to the addition of the building itself, and how long it takes to get a permit. I guess I would vote for or suggest a motion that would approve the HOP with this particular deck and its material issues pulled off. And let me finish. So that we can approve the bulk of this HOP, and that deck and its materials can be heard separately with samples provided for the entire commission to review. And again, any additional materials, photographs, or reviews or reports from other locations where it's been used in a historic district, not just this one, but other historic districts, is provided. Commissioner Billman.
Ask, in that condition, will we be reviewed in 2 meetings' time, assuming that you are going to need those photos and that material and write up another staff report? Or is this able to be tabled to the next meeting and I can give you that information tomorrow?
The due date for June 12th was close of business today, so this would need to wait until the second June meeting.
And our next docket's a pretty long one, so you wouldn't want to be here that late, trust me.
So,
I'll be at that one anyways.
Commissioner
with all due respect, I'm on this subcommittee, and I have brought in samples of acre so everybody could look at it, and I have brought in samples of Eritis so everybody could look at it, and I have brought these in and people have touched them and handled them. I have photographs. I have made a presentation with photographs of places where this deck has been used, these materials have been used. I think that the commission should be well advised and knowledgeable about these issues. Plus, we had a case, I'm trying to think, it's Gudowski's, something like that, case.
The Godelskis were proposing to install Aratus porch flooring, not acre. And to your point as well, well, yes, that was
Well,
that
what-
was the material at issue, where they
Yeah.
did bring in material samples.
And we all got to stand on it and feel it and hold it and touch it and everything like that. I mean, I think we've already met the criteria that we look at it, touch it, feel it, and
Commissioner
evaluate
Dolan-
it.
Commissioner Dolan, I do appreciate your point of view, but the committee that's been working on this is not the entire commission, and there are commissioners who have not had the opportunity to look at these materials the way the committee has. So there is that. And also, I think it is on the applicant's requirement, or we should be requiring from the applicants to provide a sample of the material, not rely on a previous case or, a commissioner bringing in the samples. I think the applicant should be required to bring in the samples and provide photographs and other materials as part of their application for the work. Commissioner
May I
Nasser?
add something?
Yes.
I think this is Commissioner Nasser. I think this will also give you time to discuss the disconnecting the two porches with your client, and if they agree with that's another solution. So I think that would be a kind of good idea to just give you some time.
Commissioner Haynes?
Well, I'd like to make a motion. So I move that the Historic Preservation Commission, in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 24A of Montgomery County Code, approve HOP number 1067931, located at 102 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase, with the condition number 2 stated in the staff recommendation report, but excluding the proposed western deck off the family room would be removed from this HOP application and reconsidered at a future HOP.
Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Nasser. I'll second.
And I would like to do a roll call vote for this one, please, starting with Commissioner Dimignani.
I vote aye or yay.
Yay.
Commissioner Haynes, yay.
Vice Chair Burdett, yay.
Commissioner Doman, nay.
Commissioner Rado, yay.
The motion carries 5-1.
Please talk with the staff. They'll talk you through with what you're going to need to provide, and also as soon as you can get before us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next case or HOP is item 1E at 106 Tulip Avenue, Tacoma Park. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. We're sort of moving on with additional substitute materials today. So this is the staff report for 106 Tulip Avenue in Tacoma Park. It's HOP number 1068716. It is designated as an outstanding resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District. It was constructed circa 1880. It's this guy set way far back from the road here. This HOP is to be reviewed under the Tacoma Park Historic District Design Guidelines, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. So the applicant proposes to remove and replace the existing wood French doors. You see them here. They're showing signs of rot and failure. So this opening was actually approved by the HPC in a 1995 HOP, so the doors were installed in either 1995 or 1996. I don't have a date of whether or not this was a later construction or was just enclosed later. The siding changes to a narrower reveal for the shed roof section. So the applicant proposes to install a Marvin Elevate multi-light French door into the existing opening. This door is a fiberglass-clad wood door with simulated divided lights with permanently affixed interior and exterior grills with a spacer bar between the glass. The applicant provided a sample, which I'll bring out and we can do show and tell shortly. So staff finds that the subject property is designated as an outstanding resource for its association with B.F. Gilbert, not for its architecture. Gilbert, the founder of Tacoma Park, said he lived at this property while he built his mansion, which subsequently burned down. And staff finds that the existing door opening is not historic, and the north elevation is not at all visible from the public right-of-way. So staff finds that the existing wood doors have deteriorated and cannot be repaired, and removal is appropriate under 24A8B2 and Standard 2. Staff finds that a wood door would typically be required on an outstanding resource, but because this property is designated for its history and not its architecture, and because this is not a historic opening, and because this door is on the rear, staff finds that a wood or aluminum-clad wood door would be appropriate in this instance. And staff finds that the proposed fiberglass exterior does not have an appropriate finish to be an acceptable substitute for a wood door, as it is too shiny and will not dull over time. So staff recommends that the HPC approve the removal and replacement of the door with the added condition that the replacement door be either wood or aluminum clad, with final approval authority delegated to staff. And with the recommended conditions, staff finds that the HOP is consistent with 24A8B1, 2, and D, and standards 2, 9, and 10. And we could do questions or we could do show and tell, whichever the commissioners would prefer first.
Are there any questions for staff? Commission? No, okay, how about show and tell then?
Okay. Actually, I will encourage you to come down to the table just so everybody can do it at once. They were nice enough to provide a full sample window, so. So this is Marvin Elevate. So it's they're doing a door, but it's, yeah, sorry, Kevin. But they wanted to provide a window because it's a simulated divided light door that they're proposing. So this is the exterior material. It's a fiberglass. I think the applicant or the applicant's representative is here, and he can tell you more about the product if you have additional questions. Chris is on, right, Kevin? The rep for this is on the call. Chris. Brian, sorry, Brian, yes, I see him. Brian Anger? Yep. And now we can do any questions for staff.
Commissioner Doman?
Maybe you don't know, but I'm curious if it's paintable.
That's a question directed to the owner's representative. He's actually joining us virtually. There was a conflict, so he's in the ether, but is happy to answer any questions.
Any other questions?
There are actually,
Okay,
sorry, there are actually two of us here tonight. The original sales representative and myself, who's the sales manager. I'm going to let John take the questions on the product specifically.
hold on, please. We're not quite ready to start asking you questions. We're still asking staff. So if you'll just hold on for just a couple of minutes, we'll be ready for your presentation, and then we'll be asking you questions, if that's okay. All right? Commissioner Commissioner Dominiani.
Hi, this is Commissioner Dominiani. I'd like to confirm that the proposed door is the same matte finish material that we've seen on this window here.
The finish is consistent across the brand, but the applicant's representative can talk further about the finish and how it's produced.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question for staff. Did I hear correctly that the addition that this door is going into is not known to, it's not original, or the age is not known?
The age of the portion of the house is unknown, but we know we can date the opening from our own HOP records. So again, the image that was, these images come from the 1995 approved HOP. So that actually created this opening that you see circled in red.
So the structure the opening is in is of an unknown date.
Correct.
It could be original to the house or not, and you just know it's older than the date of the opening.
Correct. We don't know the original date of construction for, well, actually, we don't know an exact date of construction for the house, full stop, but we also don't know the age of construction of this portion of it either.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Haynes?
Thank you, Commissioner Haynes. Is this door visible from the public right-of-way?
No, not at all. So it's on between the change in grade and the distance, conceivably you could, I mean, you can't see it from here. It's too far from the right-of-way. But that would be the view if the topography cooperated, but no, it's not at all visible from the right-of-way.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, the applicants, if anyone's coming forward here live, please do so. If not, the applicants that are on the cloud or, calling in, would you please identify yourselves and your relationship to this project? Thank you.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is John McDermott, representing Louise Klee for 106 Tulip Ave. I am the contractor who has been helping her with this door and has filed the permit with you guys as well. I understand there was a couple questions as far as the finish on the fiberglass clad product. It is a matte finish. It is also a full glass door, so there's not much fiberglass at all in the entire product. It is a very long driveway up to the front of the house. Driving down or walking down that street, there is no sidewalk. It's just a road. I've not been able to see driving, down that road, even remotely close where the back of the house is. And from my understanding, that was, an addition built on the house in 1995. It was stated as a non-historic opening.
And that's the end of your comments. If it is, then are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Doman?
Well, this is Commissioner Doman. I had queried staff on it, but my question is this product paintable?
Oh, yes, it is, sir.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay. We can begin our deliberations. Would anybody like to start on this? Commissioner Haynes?
Well, given the door's location primarily on the back of the house, its distance from the street, that it's replacing a non-historic door combination, and we are unclear if the structure that the opening fits in is historic or not. Further, I find that the matte finish of the fiberglass, and I've done a lot of aluminum-clad windows with Marvin and others, that I don't think we would really be able to tell the difference. I don't find that this example is shiny at all in what I would consider shiny. I think the matte finish is acceptable in this instance, in this condition where it's not visible from the public right-of-way, and therefore I would find that this fiberglass solution would be acceptable.
Any other comments? If not, I'll finish up. I agree with Commissioner Haynes. The matte finish on the Marvin window is matte. It's not shiny, and one of the reasons we usually do not accept fiberglass is because it's a shiny, glossy look. And this is not. And the fact that it's even paintable is another plus for it. So given the location of the door, given the sight lines, given the quality of the material, of the fiberglass, I would be able to approve this hop. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Sure. This is Commissioner Haynes. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission, in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 24A of Montgomery County Code, approve HOP number 1068716 at 106 Tulip Avenue to accept the Marvin fiberglass clad window in a matte finish, and we feel this meets the criteria of Chapter 24A 8B 1, 2, and D, as well as the Tacoma Park District Guidelines and the Secretary of Interior's 2, 9, and 10.
Do I hear a second?
As Commissioner Doman, I'll second that.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays or any abstentions? Then this hop is approved, and the staff can speak with you about what comes next. I would like to say, for those of you here, if you're wondering what is going on, that we can be so hard on one case and so easy on another, we have to look at many things when we review these, especially if we're looking at a material that is not necessarily just one of our approved materials, or what's going on. So we have to look at a lot of different things when we do this. And this is the first, I'm very familiar, we're all very familiar with Marvin windows. It's a quality window. But I personally, we got a lot of architects up here. I've never seen this matte finish on a fiberglass window, or door. So, and that is significant, and it's going to be something we're going to have to talk about with staff, that this particular finish is appropriate, especially since it's paintable. So every case is taken on its own merits every time, and we do not set precedent unless we change our policies. So I just want to get that in there for if you're confused. All right, that's it for the hops, and we're moving on to the preliminaries tonight. And our first one is 2A at 15100 Barnesville Road, Boyd's. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there'll be a very brief staff report this evening here. So again, this is a preliminary consultation for Hoyles Mill, which is a contributing resource to the Boyd's Historic District. You can see the lines of the district were drawn to specifically capture this building, which was constructed circa 1915, and it's reviewed under Chapter 24A, the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation, and the Mark Rail Communities Sector Plan, which was adopted in 2019. So the proposal is to stabilize the building foundation by filling the basement level with a flowable fill concrete. And a 2019 assessment found that the building to be in poor condition, including holes in the roof and windows that allowed water infiltration. Additional structural deficiencies at the foundation were determined to be the biggest threat to the building's stability, including areas of missing stone, which allowed soil to begin to fill the basement. Last August, the HPC held a preliminary consultation to evaluate the proposed work and to solicit input on a preservation plan for the site. The HPC requested additional information about the stabilization plan for the structure and requested a HOP before the HPC would entertain MCDOT's proposed work in the immediate area. So the applicant provided us with a very specific proposal in order, erect CMU walls to create a corridor from the basement door to the well, close off all major openings where flowable fill could extend outside the building envelope, construct window boxes inside the basement to maintain their historic visual appearance, perform exploratory archaeology of the building's exterior perimeter prior to excavation, removing loose trash debris from including any mill machinery from inside the building, and salvage any artifacts, repair any holes in the floors with plywood, and then fill the entire crawl space area with flowable fill concrete. Remove and discard the steel stair platform, remove all the power lines, install plywood panels with louvers in the windows, and remove and replace deteriorated basement doors and frame with a new steel door and frame, and demolish and replace the existing site stair leading down into the crawl space, although some of these things have changed in the interim, and then clear up any insects and other biological pests. So staff finds that the existing foundation is failing and the basement is being infiltrated by soil, water, and biological pests, and the stabilized foundation will allow site access leading to a full-scale rehabilitation and adaptive reuse in the building. And the applicant identified this solution as being more cost-effective than temporarily moving the entire mill building elsewhere, either on-site or off. And while staff is not an engineer, our primary concern with this in concept is that the work is irreversible, which would run counter to Standard 10. But there are a number of other considerations that we've identified and have discussed at previous preliminary consultations. So the four primary questions for the HPC during this consultation are: does the HPC have any concerns about the proposed work in addition to those identified by staff? Does the HPC find the proposal to be appropriate under the circumstances? Does the HPC require any additional documentation or calculations with a final HOP application to stabilize the foundation? And are there any other courses of action that the HPC would like the applicant to consider to stabilize the foundation? And I will answer any questions that you have at this time.
Are there any questions for staff? This is Commissioner Burdett. I just want to confirm that this was there were no other alternatives presented. This is the...
Correct. This was the proposal presented to staff in this preliminary consultation.
Okay.
So, I mean, if your question is, were there other proposals considered and rejected, that's a question for the applicant, and staff can't answer that.
Yeah, you didn't reject it.
Correct.
It was rejected before it got to you. Okay. All right, there are no questions for staff. We'll move on to a presentation by the applicant, and I understand they all work for WRAL. Brian Barna, Lonnie Hovey, and Pam Destino, and they're all coming to us virtually, I understand. Would you, however you want to do this, give a presentation, explanation, just whoever's speaking, please identify yourselves and your relationship to this project. Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair and members of the HPC, good evening. I'm Lonnie Hovey, Historic Preservation Architect with Whitman Requart.
Good evening. My name is Brian Barn. I'm a structural engineer on this project for WRA.
This is Lonnie Hovey. Good evening, Madam Vice Chair and members of the HPC. I'm the Historic Preservation Architect with Whitman Requart and Associates, and we also have our project manager, Pam Destino, with us. We were with you previously last August for the proposed transit improvement project. You asked us to return for more information about a structural stabilization plan to preserve the mill. We've submitted to you our 30% design submission for the mill stabilization. And since that submission, we've received comments from stakeholders and have made some modifications to our plan. Next slide. Let me first outline the condition of the foundation walls. When the building was expanded to enclose the basement well, the structure was raised. If you look at this left-hand image, you can see there's a stone masonry foundation, and upon that is a concrete unreinforced foundation. That stone foundation below the concrete has eroded and undermined the foundation system. And in the middle and the right-hand slides, you can see some of the original mill equipment attached to posts in the basement. It's axles and pulleys that ran equipment up on the first and second floors. Next slide. In the upper left image is the north side of the mill, and where the arrows are, that soil at grade is sinking, and that is what's coming through the north foundation, undermining the unreinforced concrete. The image on the upper right, bottom left, show where the rubble stone wall has disappeared and soil is now pouring into the basement with each rainstorm. In the bottom right image, the red arrow points to a crack in the unreinforced concrete foundation at the north wall with a hole underneath it where soil is coming through from that north side of the property. The mill is also settling with posts on the first and second floors punching through the floorboards and bowing out of plane. The red square is the mill. To stabilize the foundation and the structure, our structural engineers looked at a range of options. The sinking unstable soil on the north side of the mill and the constricted site does not permit construction equipment to do what's needed to move the mill without extensive and expensive site stabilization. This led us to an option to use flowable concrete fill to fill the basement and all these voids that have created by the undermining of the foundations. The flowable fill would stabilize the foundation and the unstable soil at the north side to then allow the construction of the transit improvements, which also will improve the site's stormwater drainage. The option to move the building and rebuild the foundation cost at least $500,000, with nearly half that more to stabilize the site before any work can be done on the mill. The option to fill the crawl space with flowable fill concrete is about $222,000. Next slide. I'll turn it over to Brian Barnard, structural engineer.
Thank you, Lonnie. So this slide is just to show a sample of problems indicative throughout the building and the superstructure. It's a wood frame structure, and as you can see, floorboards are pushing up and punching upwards from the structure underneath. This is likely caused by differential building settlement related to the failing foundation. Next slide, please. So what we are proposing is a foundation stabilization option, and this would consist of flowable fill concrete installed up to the grade level, which would retain a small crawl space below the first floor and keep the concrete off of the first floor historic wood structure. Everything we're doing associated with the flowable fill structural stabilization would have no visual impacts to the building exterior. Next slide, please. We received stakeholder comments and took those into consideration. One of the comments was to not fill the flowable fill all the way up to the underside of the first floor. We took that into consideration and we agree, and we're proposing that the flowable fill instead be extended up to the grade level, the exterior grade level, which aligns with the existing concrete perimeter walls that you can see. Again, this would create a small crawl space area where utilities could be run under the first floor for adaptive reuse. We're also proposing creating a small utility room in the southeast corner that would not be filled with flowable fill, and could be, again, used for the adaptive reuse, potentially as either mechanical or storage space. What we are doing regarding the foundation stabilization does not preclude any adaptive reuse in the future for Hoyle's Mill. Next slide, please. Just a couple quick notes on flowable fill. It's essentially concrete, but it's a very low viscosity concrete that will flow into place and requires no compaction. We're offering this up as an option because the flowable fill will fill in the gaps in the failing foundation and essentially create a new matte foundation for the structure, offering stability for the entire structure preventing additional differential settlement or further damage to the structure. We are proposing that first the floorboards of the first floor be temporarily removed, and then the flowable fill can be pumped directly through the first floor into the basement for the protection of the contractors, because they would not need to be in the basement during this work, and provides a good visual to provide good control of the flowable fill during construction. And I'll turn it back over to Lonnie for the last couple slides.
Next slide, please. After we submitted our design documents, we learned that the well in the basement cannot be reused, so there's no need to access it, which gives us the opportunity to still create a possible utility room, as you see on the slide in this southeast corner, taking advantage of the basement stairs and the door to the basement that would be redone and rebuilt. The existing doors and stairs, those are all there, but they've also deteriorated over time, and the stairs and cheek walls have all cracked and need to be replaced. Next slide. There are 4 basement windows, and they're currently boarded over. The remaining original material to these windows includes the window frame and the sash frame. No glass or muntins remain. Marks on the sash frame indicate the basement windows had 2 rows of 3 window panes each. To prevent the flowable fill from going out the windows, we propose to create window boxes behind the existing windows. And this will create 8 inches of space for the future restoration of the windows would be done from the outside to retain the look and character of the original windows. Next slide. Here's the site plan showing the proposed transit improvement project. The red rectangle in the bottom left is where the mill is, and you can see the location for the relocated well in the bottom right. The new well will be able to supply water to the bus driver's restroom as part of the transit improvements, and can supply future water needs to the Hoyles Mill and its future adaptive reuse. Thank you for this opportunity to present our stabilization plans to you.
Thank you. Are there questions for the applicant? Jeff Haynes, Commissioner Haynes?
Yes. How much space from the bottom of the floor joist to the top of the concrete fill are you proposing?
Right now, to get up to the mill, there's a couple of steps at the front door and larger steps on the west side because the site slopes downward. But the crawl space would be somewhere between 18 to 20 inches.
Okay. It's kind of tight if there's plumbing work there that might need to be serviced down the road, or other utilities that might need to be serviced. And if you've ever been in a 18-inch crawl space, you better be a pretty thin person. So that's just one sort of functional question. But why do you need to come up that high? Why can't you fill to the top of the existing stone wall? And is it really about mitigating the soil intrusion into the foundation, or are you tying the existing foundation walls together so that it's this big block of concrete and masonry, and kind of address sort of more the structural rationalization for filling it up that much? And then how does we talked about kind of the safety of contractors, how does that utility mechanical room, that's a new CMU wall and footings, how does that get built without, caving in?
Yes, thank you. I'll address your first question first. It's both of the things that you suggested. Our proposal is that the flowable fill would be used to fill in the gaps of the foundation, but also, essentially, create a large mat foundation, exactly like you said, that it's going to prevent the walls from wanting to push in or continue to settle. What we have is, an existing rubble stone foundation that is completely failing, and we have gaps as wide as about 10 feet that the existing, that we believe an unreinforced CMU or a concrete wall is now being forced to act as a beam supporting the entire weight of the building, spanning between what's left of the existing stone masonry foundation, and there are full depth cracks through the entire wall because it's not meant to act that way. So the flowable fill would be used to essentially just create a matte foundation under the entire superstructure, and it seemed to be a rational place to align it with the grade level to prevent any future intrusion of soil coming through, and also providing the stability, the passive pressure to push against any sort of soil pressure on the outside of the wall. The second part of your question, we're proposing adding concrete masonry unit walls to surround the perimeter of the utility room that, when we're filling with flowable fill, which we would do in lifts of no more than 3 feet at a time, you would essentially act as formwork that the flowable fill could not pass through. And then the flowable fill would fill the spaces they could get to, but leave the space inside of the CMU that could be reused for other purposes.
So is this flowable concrete, I assume there's a reinforcing mat that you would put into this, or no? Is it just the sheer volume of concrete that provides the stabilization?
It would be unreinforced.
Unreinforced. And if you brought it up to, I haven't seen the crawl space, so excuse this question, but could you bring it up to 3 inches of the window sills, and would that be sufficient to achieve the stabilization? And then would give you a better crawl space height?
I don't believe so. So the existing crawl space, there is a small portion that provides just enough room right now to stand in, 7 to 8 feet of height. The majority of the crawl space already is only about 3 to 4 feet of height from the top of the crawl space to the underside of the structure. Was not intended for occupancy. It appears to have been carved out to provide room to access this well that is no longer going to be used.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Commissioner Doman?
I'm totally amazed at this project. I've never seen, we call it flowable concrete used like this. I'm not familiar with the product at all. I have done work on stabilization of rubble walls in historic houses, but generally it is a, what do you call it, a wall built against the existing wall. You would put a foundation in and then put a wall up against the existing wall. In this case, you got rubble wall low and then poured concrete, unreinforced concrete wall above that, and you'd build a wall right against that and maybe put some reinforcing what do you call them? Some support that keeps it in position. I mean, does this seem like this isn't? My question was, it seems like an awful lot of work to get this, and an awful lot of concrete. I was wondering how you're going to do this, and you had mentioned that you're taking up the floorboards, which makes sense, and then you're going to do it like in 3-foot pour, something like that, and then let it stabilize and come back and then pour some more. I guess that's how it's going to have to be done. Can you provide a example where this has been used successfully in some other historic application? Because I've never seen this being done. I'd be interested in knowing that it's been successfully done. Thank you.
Commissioner Radu?
Yes, thank you. I'm looking at the on the package foundation plan drawing 1S1-01, and you noted that the wall that's in poor condition is on the north side, and I saw a section through through that well room, and it seems like the northern part is really where the crawl space is, but the southern part is where the windows are, and it's like 8 feet. It's not 2 feet. I mean, it's not just the 3-4 feet on the other side. So I was just wondering if you considered some other solution where you would really reinforce the north side, but not really infill all the southern part, which doesn't seem, from what you were talking earlier, doesn't seem to have as much damage as the north side.
Brian, do you want to mention the prior concrete block that was put in to try and stabilize the north foundation wall that has failed?
Yes. First, in looking at this photo, you can see it is not just the north side. It's really all sides that have, you know, this original stone masonry foundation that is entirely eroding with the unreinforced concrete wall on top of it. Actually, the south wall actually does have a secondary wall that was built outside of it already to act as a retaining wall. Lonnie, do you want to, or Pam, do you want to move to the slide that has this concrete mass?
Yeah, in the oh, you had it. Go back one more. Go to slide 3. Yeah, right there. Slide 3. In the bottom right, you can see just past that axle with the pulleys, there's a large white block. Previously, someone installed a 40-inch deep and 36-inch high concrete mass against the existing rubble wall. We believe as an attempt to try and shore that up, and it has failed to stop the soils from washing into the building. And that 40 by 36-inch mass that's roughly 20 feet long is now rotating out of plane because the soil is washing in and moving that block of concrete deeper into the basement. So the idea of trying to stabilize the interior foundation walls with concrete, new concrete reinforced foundation walls with buttresses, trying to shore that up, it has been attempted and has failed internally. And really the only wall that's keeping the mill from sliding down the hill to the tracks is that south external retaining wall that was added at some time. I think if go to the second slide. Yeah, so here's 2 images, the middle and the right-hand image. You can see that concrete block that is angled and pitching inwards towards the basement. And the right-hand image where the red arrow is a better view of the crack that's through the entire unreinforced concrete foundation at the north side.
Commissioner Radu?
I do have one, I mean, just to follow up on Commissioner Haynes' question about the possibility of really on the south side to maybe do a mat foundation. I mean, I don't know if like mat foundations work in steps because I'm not a structural engineer, but if the infill would be done just at the level of the stone masonry foundation or a little above, just to spare those windows and not infill I mean, I think I read some of the concerns of the Boys Historical Society or Foundation, and I agree with a lot of their concerns about moisture, about irreversibility, about it seems like the solution still like raises a lot of questions.
This is Commissioner Burdett, and I would like, I have a couple questions before we do a round 2 of questions. Is the floor of the crawl space soil or concrete or stone?
Soil.
Soil. So what is to prevent, if you pour this big thick mat of concrete down there, what is to prevent the soil from continuing to wash out from underneath that? And how are you tying this whole thing into the existing walls? How are you ensuring that by pouring this against the existing walls, you don't risk blowing the walls outward? Because all you're doing is keeping them from forcing inward, collapsing inward.
Brian?
I don't believe that soil eroding underneath the foundation would be a concern. It wouldn't really have anywhere to go. Regarding your question about walls blowing outward, that's why we would have strict controls regarding the limitation on how much of the concrete can be poured at any one time. It would only be pressing on the walls when the concrete is in its liquid state. As soon as it hardens, it would no longer be putting any pressure on the walls. So essentially, the existing perimeter walls act as the formwork for the flowable fill to work up to and around and underneath, and then as soon as it hardens, there would be no more pressure pushing outward on it, but it would provide a giant buttress that would prevent any more soil pressure from pushing inward on it to cause further damage.
Also, when you pour are the existing posts all wood? And when you pour all of this, you will surround these wood posts with concrete, and then therefore, what happens if they rot out?
That is correct, and the wood would bear on this mat foundation. We can examine if there are appropriate measures to protect the wood that is surrounded by the concrete. I mean, the concrete does provide some inherent protection on its own in terms of anything getting in to potentially rot the wood out. I mean, wood is placed directly on concrete all the time. It's not ideal, but we could look at preservation measures, but it would be only the one row of columns running down the center of the building that would have an encasement of the concrete. We would keep the concrete below all of the first floor floorboards and joists and girders.
Yeah, but I am talking about the posts that are in the crawl space themselves. I mean, are you talking about taking them out and then replacing them once the concrete's poured and supporting those floor joists off of the concrete? Or are you going to pour around those existing posts in the crawl space?
The plan was to pour around the existing posts in the crawl space.
And when you do this, you won't see anything that's going on underneath that large slab, that mat, or up against the walls either until it's a serious issue. Because, I mean, I understand what you're trying to do here, but I'm not getting a sense of security with this. Also, within your report or proposal, you really don't address ventilation down there, and you talked about filling in the void between the floorboards and the top of the concrete using a spray foam fill. I'm not sure why you would do that. Why were you suggesting that? Was it just for insulation purposes?
We received a comment from the stakeholders that were concerned about insulation for potential future adaptive reuse. It's not germane to the structural stabilization itself. The insulation is not necessary for the structural stabilization.
All right. So your point is just to stabilize the structure and not so much a future adaptive reuse or for this historic quality of the equipment in that basement. I just want to be clear about that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
This is just a stabilization of the mill. It would remove the historic axles and pulleys and put those on the first floor for future interpretation.
Did you look at any point, I mean, I understand pouring this up to the top of the stone, the original stone foundation, okay? But you've also said that the CMU block wall above that is unreinforced. There's no steel in it holding it together. So it's just the CMU and mortar. Have you looked at jacking up the building enough to replace that existing CMU with new CMU that is reinforced, that is fully grouted in place?
It is not CMU. It was a poured in place unreinforced concrete wall put on the top of the stone.
Of the stone. So it is what it is. All right. I apologize for that. Okay. All right. I think that's my questions. Commissioner Doman, you had another question?
Well, actually, in my first question, I asked if there was any previous history of the use of the flowable concrete in an application like this, and if so, if you could make it available to the commission. I'd like to see how this is held up in other applications that you may have done or somebody else may have done. Thank you.
Are there any more questions? If not, we'll go into our deliberation. And would somebody like to start? Or comments, I guess, final comments. I'll start. I do understand what you're trying to do here, but there is, granted, none of us are structural engineers up here, but you do have a lot of architects and you do have preservationists up here. And I am not comfortable with what this proposal is because there is a shortage of technical information related to how this is going to work structurally. You are basically telling us we're going to pour a lot of concrete in the crawl space and it's going to work. And you're not addressing any sort of water penetration after it's been poured or reinforcement anywhere around this, inside or out. You're not telling us what's going to happen before you do this pour to channel the water away from it. You've basically said this is the fastest, cheapest way we can do this. And I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with the fact that you are limiting the adaptive reuse of this building because you are limiting what can be done in that crawl space as far as piping and ventilation and repairs and material that will be down there rotting out with no way to deal with it or even know that it's happening until it's too late. This is what's concerning me about this whole process. I'm also concerned by seeing this is a mill and there is equipment down there related to the mill function, and you're saying we're just going to take that out and put it someplace else without any thought that maybe it should stay in place for, again, some future adaptive reuse or some use of this as a historic facility. I just don't know if this has been thought through enough from an engineering standpoint. Obviously, you guys have thought this out and come up with a very fast, quick solution to get, so you can start your project outside that building, so you can stabilize it and get your work going, and then later this building can be rehabbed. But the way you're doing this is creating a very severe impact on this building for its stability and its future structural stability and its future use. And I am not comfortable with this proposal without some more information, some more analysis of how this is going to work, and also with a clear understanding that, on your part and on our part, that it is limiting the future use of this building to a degree beyond just it's a small building and it doesn't even have any water or toilet service. Anybody'd like to go next? Commissioner Radu?
I agree with Commissioner Burdett. Concerns, I was saying still like on the south side, I was looking at the photographs you had on that slide number 3. Didn't seem that unreinforced concrete foundation is in that poor of a condition. I mean, as I said, I'm not a structural engineer, but I was wondering if there is a possibility for us to actually go to the site. But also maybe additional materials, some additional photographs. If we cannot go to the site, maybe if you could provide us with a few more photographs of the conditions you photographed at the site. Just as I said, I think I would understand on the north side to like really do a massive a more massive construction, to reinforce that wall. But I am not convinced, and I would like more information and maybe an additional section through that part of not through that well room, the utility, what would be a utility room, but on the next bay, let's say, to better understand what you're proposing. Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
Yeah, I agree with Chairman Burdett and what she said. I think this may have to be, the whole thing may need additional information. What I would like to see, as people have said, I'm not a structural engineer either, and I have to rely upon your input and your decisions. But I would like to see kind of like a decision tree or more of a write-up from the WRA group about why you came up with this and your decision process of why you came up with this approach. I think we need more information. I'm not doubting that what you have done may be the best proposal, but we as me personally, I just don't have enough information to justify what you're doing unless I can look into this big black box of how you came up with this decision. So I'd like to see some more discussion or written testimony or something to make us feel more comfortable with what you're proposing. Thank you.
Commissioner Haynes?
If I may ask a quick question, have you done soil tests around the building? Hello?
Yes, we have.
What kind of soil is this and I guess my question where I'm going is, if we do all of this, is the soil still going to continue to fall out from underneath this slab? But that said, something for you to think about. I do agree that there's probably a few more issues to at least address, such as is there a high water table? Is that part of the problem? And if there is, then there probably needs to be a subterranean drain system that needs to go down first before your slab goes in, and to alleviate that water pressure that might be rising from below. And then having a better understanding of how you would treat the wood post in the center of the structure, to think about that and address that. So I do think there are some practical considerations that we need to have a little better understanding. For instance, if it's adaptively reused, will there be enough crawl space to run ductwork, to run plumbing pipes, and so forth? That was kind of going to my first question of how much space, what the crawl space would, height-wise, would be, and preferably, I would like to see at least 24 inches to 30 inches to be a comfortable and reasonable crawl space height. I think we need to balance cost of stabilizing this, because it's not just the foundation. We have to stabilize the structure above, and so I don't know what the final budget of this is, but I would sense that these projects typically are short-handed, and therefore a inexpensive solution is I think maybe warranted here. While I hate to lose the history of the pulleys and so forth, that may have to happen in exchange for for the larger picture of the whole structure being reused and stabilized for future adaptive uses. So I kind of, in concept, agree with you, but I think there's still more details we need to understand before we can really support this. Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, I think then we've given you our concerns and our questions and our comments. I think you can see that we are looking for more information from you, some understanding of how you came to this particular solution as opposed to prior solutions that were rejected. We would like to see possibly some diagrams that explain the structural forces and how this works, and your analysis. Simplified a bit from what you guys would normally talk to each other about, but, for us. And I think we need to talk to you again. I am wondering if we need to do a site visit, if some of the commissioners would like to go out. I think...
if representatives from MCDOT could come forward and perhaps answer some of the commissioners' questions about the feasibility of a site visit. Thank you.
Thank you, and if you'll make sure your mics are on and you identify yourself, I'd appreciate it.
Good evening, Rebecca Park, MCDOT Transportation Unit Manager, also Project Manager for Boys Transit.
Hello, I'm Dan Sheridan. I'm with MCDOT. I'm the Planning Design Section Chief in the Division of Transportation Engineering. And so I think we're open to a site visit. I do think there is some issues with the structure itself. So, but I think we can arrange that, or maybe at least have the consultant take more pictures, more clarifying pictures of the concerned areas. And, your questions, looking for more information for the choice of this, all makes sense, right? We had the same type of thoughts when they presented it to us, like, what about groundwater? What about soil? So I think we can do the analysis and break it down. Obviously, I actually sort of am a structural engineer, but I like it simple too also, so.
Well, it would be helpful if, from WRA through you to us, so you can speak our language. I think that would be helpful. I think if any commissioners are inclined to possibly take a site visit, they can speak with Ms. Ballo and see if that's feasible. And then also understanding anybody who wants to do that, understand this is a fragile preliminary construction site, so you will have to wear the appropriate gear if you're out there, including hard hats, boots, etc. So if you're inclined, just let Ms. Ballo know. Otherwise, more photographs would be extremely helpful. And again, the diagrams and some understanding of how they got to this solution would be helpful.
Just for additional information, I mean, the foundation is failing, and you know, the pictures you saw were taken, I don't know, before COVID. So what I was informed that it's not safe to crawl into that space. Okay. So also, it's before you go into the building, you have to sign the liability.
Yeah, no, I understand. Okay, so just so we understand that we won't be going into the crawl space if we go out there, but even if you do go onto that site, you will be wearing safety gear. Okay, understand it's a construction site. So Ms. Ballo will get back to you about that possibility. We do understand that this is a moving project and obviously a very fragile building. So as quickly as we can all get this turned around and get to a point of comfort or a solution that we're all comfortable with, that would be appreciated. Ms. Ballo, any other thoughts?
No, I'll be happy to coordinate the site visit between members of the commission and the staff from MCDOT.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. This has been a really interesting preliminary. We don't get stuff like this very often, so it's been very interesting. I'll just leave it there.
So we'll ask the consultant to give a little bit more information about, are there examples of when it's done in historic sites? I think we can give you some examples where how flowable fills is used in a new construction site. So yeah. I think they're using those, but I don't know the answer, and maybe, I don't know, maybe there aren't examples of it being used, but also the consideration of the depth of the fill and why we would choose whatever depth. Again, bottom of the, or top of the rubble wall or bottom of the windows seems all very like logical questions to ask. And
okay.
Yeah, I mean, if even this is the first time to put the flowable concrete in the structure built in a historical structure, will provide you complete information and data that will support the justification of this material.
Yeah, and particularly wherever wood is, if wood is backing up to this concrete fill, at even like at the wood shadow, the window boxes, they have to assume that the wood is going to eventually rot out. So how is the whole window box being replaced at some future date? Not just the window, but the window box itself. So it's that kind of thinking out 20, 50 years, what's going to be happening, because it's going to be some future commission's headache. So, but thank you very much. We do appreciate it.
thank you for having us.
All right, moving on.
Thank you very much.
We are going to move on to preliminary 2B at 10305 Armory Avenue, Kensington. And is there a staff report?
Yes, this is a preliminary consultation for 10305 Armory Avenue. The applicant proposes demolition, a two-story rear addition, and various alterations. The primary two resource is a bungalow in the Kensington Historic District built circa 1920. It's located near the intersection of Armory Avenue and Baltimore Street, also near Connecticut Avenue. It's reviewed under the Kensington Master Plan, Vision of Kensington, County Code, and the Secretary of the Interior Rehab Standards. This is a Sanborn map dated from 1950 to 63 that shows the building with a full-width front porch along the front. It since has been partially enclosed to create an inset porch. We have 3 hops for this property, one from 1996 for the installation of 3 windows on the rear elevation, another in 2008 for the shed demo and new construction. That's the garage building in the corner here. And in 2019, a fence was installed. Here are existing photos. On the left, you see the front and right side elevations. The photo on the right shows that same, or this is also the right side elevation from a different angle. And here's the rear elevation. And these are some of the windows that were installed at later dates on this elevation. And here's that outbuilding that was constructed in 2008. It's called a shed, but it's really a garage with no connecting to the, no driveway that connects it to Armory Avenue. First, for the changes to the existing building. The applicant proposes to replace the porch floor and front wood stairs with composite. On the building, the rear wall, a number of window changes are proposed, such as removing the storm windows, infilling 2 windows and enlarging 4 others on the right side elevation, installing replacement wood windows on the front elevation and composites on the sides, and then 2 window wells are proposed on the right side elevation for basement egress. And then on the building, the rear wall is to be removed to accommodate an addition that we will get to shortly. The roof will be elevated 1 foot. The chimney will be removed. 3 tab shingles will be replaced with architectural grade shingles. A 1-foot eave will be added to the front. The vinyl siding will be replaced with wood. New downspouts will be added, and the front door will be replaced. For the rear addition, it will be 2 stories tall with a basement. The footprint that measures either 27 by 24 feet or 28 by 23 feet. The final shape hasn't been decided yet, but the addition will be around 1,300 square feet. So for reference, the existing 1-story house is approximately 1,100 square feet. It will be inset a foot on each side. It will have a CMU foundation. It will have wood siding to match the siding proposed for the existing building. The sash windows and sliding door will be composite. It will have a side-oriented gable roof that matches the 5.7/12 pitch of the existing gable roof. The roof will be covered with architectural grade shingles to match what's proposed for the existing house's roof, and a 240 square foot deck with Trex flooring and composite railing will be built off the back of the addition. For the grounds for hardscaping and landscaping, the brick patio, 3 trees, and a fence segment are proposed for removal. An areaway and concrete pad are proposed along the new addition. The curb cut along Armory Avenue will be shifted over, and an 11-foot wide concrete drive will be laid to that outbuilding. A concrete parking pad will be laid next to that garage building as well. Stone pavers will be laid to link the proposed deck to the proposed driveway, and HVAC units will be installed to serve the new addition. So on the left is the existing site plan, and on the right is the proposed. And if you note, the existing building is right on the property line. Here's the proposed addition on the back, the deck. Here's the areaway, proposed areaway. The window wells are marked here. And then, of course, the new driveway, which extends all the way to the garage in the rear with the parking pad in the back. Here's the proposed floor plans showing the basement, 1st and 2nd floors on the addition. And here we have the existing front and rear elevations on the top and the proposed on the bottom. So they're proposing to raise the roof here a foot, and then of course you have the addition in the rear. Here's the left side, existing left side elevation on top, and the proposed on the bottom. Here you can see the grade from the front to back slopes up. Here's the right side elevation with the existing and the proposed, and note a number of fenestration changes are evident on this elevation. You can see these windows have been replaced, and some windows have been infilled in the basement for egress. Those windows have been enlarged. So staff does not support a number of the alterations proposed for the existing resource, including replacing the wood porch floor and stairs with composite, raising the roof, removing the chimney, adding an eave to the front of the building, infilling 2 windows and enlarging 4 others on the right side elevation, installing wood windows on the front elevation, and installing composite windows on the side elevation. The property is a simple design and has been altered, but it is a primary 2 resource in the Kensington Historic District, and alterations that further damage the building's form and character should be avoided. Staff finds that all this proposed work conflicts with 24A 8B of the County Code because they will substantially alter the exterior features of the resource and are incompatible with its character. The proposals also run counter to the standards, which call for alterations that do not destroy the historic character of a property. Staff instead recommends the applicant retain and repair the chimney, porch floor, stairs, windows. On the other hand, staff supports the removal of the existing rear elevation to accommodate the proposed rear addition and finds that proposal to be compatible with the character of the resource. The door on the rear elevation does appear to be original to the home's construction, and staff recommends the door be installed at either the front or on the new addition. We also support replacement of the existing 3-tab shingles with architectural grade shingles. Staff regularly approves this work administratively. We find the proposal to remove the vinyl siding and replace with wood lap siding to be compatible, but first we would like the applicant to remove portions of the existing vinyl to determine if the previous siding is present on the building. If it is and it's repairable, staff recommends the applicant do that. If the previous siding is present but not repairable, the applicant should match that siding. If none of the siding is present, staff would support the wood lap siding. We support the installation of additional downspouts. That work, again, is regularly approved administratively. We support replacement of the front door and encourage the applicant to, again, reinstall that door to be removed on the back elevation there. We do support removal of the storm windows, but we do encourage those to be retained if possible. And we, in theory, support the window wells on the right side elevation, but we would like more detailed drawings on that. So for the addition, staff supports a rear addition at this property, but not as proposed in conflict with 24A8B2. The proposal is incompatible with character and architectural features of the historic resource. And contrary to standard number 9 for new additions, staff finds that the size scale and features are incompatible to the existing building. The new addition will be approximately 11 feet taller than the existing, and staff recommends the addition be reduced in height so it does not visually overpower the existing. And the front-oriented gable roof clashes with the side-oriented gable roof on the existing building and recommends that the orientations match. Staff also seeks evenly spaced window openings on the addition, particularly on the side elevations. And staff seeks wood or aluminum-clad wood windows on the addition and not composite, as is proposed. Staff supports the pitch of the addition's roof and its covering with architectural grade shingles. Staff also supports the differentiation created by the addition's wider roof overhangs. And we also support the sliding door and the wood siding as long as it doesn't match the existing. And also we support the proposed deck on the back. Staff supports all proposed changes to the landscaping and hardscaping and finds the work will not substantially alter the historic resource and is compatible. We would like an arborist report for the trees to be removed. We also recommend the driveway is reduced in width from 11 feet to minimize the amount of pavement added to the property. And staff seeks more detailed plans for the areaway. Staff recommends a second preliminary consultation, and the resubmission should address everything in a single narrative. We need to know the size of the addition, the final size of the addition, and the drainage, which is still to be worked out. We need detailed drawings for the areaway, deck, and window wells. We need a window and door schedule. We need specification sheets for all the building features, and photos and a statement on the material design and condition of the cladding, or lack thereof, underneath the vinyl siding, and a comment response sheet. And of course, an arborist report for the 3 trees. So the next 3 slides are just listing all the changes for your reference that we seek your feedback on for the porch alterations, the window alterations, the building alterations, the feedback on the addition, and then the feedback on the hardscape and landscaping, if there's any. So any questions for staff?
Are there any questions for staff? And because it's getting late, can we be very specific to just the questions?
I have a quick question.
Yes, Commissioner
It's
Nasser?
more like a confirmation. So the existing building sitting right at the property line and the proposed addition is set back by 1 foot. Am I reading that correctly?
Correct, yes.
So there are no required setbacks for additions? This,
I am going to ask our, Rebecca, do you mind?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the question?
so Rebecca, there's 1 foot set, I understand that the existing building sitting at the property line and there's 1 foot setback for the addition. Are there any setback requirements do you know if there are any setback requirements?
Yes, typically for interior lots, the setback requirements can vary between 8 and 10 feet. The town of Kensington has their own setback requirements within the zone. I will look those up.
Thank you.
Now, but understanding any sort of final answer on that will be up to the town of Kensington, and that's something we typically do with these cases. Brookville, for example, has their own town zoning, so we ask the applicants to affirm that the setbacks meet if there's anything additional from the locality, and then come back with that as part of their prelim. But I'll check right now.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
Yeah, staff, are you recommending wood windows in the front, or are you opposed to wood windows in the front?
The point there is to retain the existing windows, because right now they're wood, so we would like those to be retained and not be removed, unless there's evidence that they're damaged beyond repair, which we don't have at the moment.
So your recommendation is, if it's replaced, it should be wood windows?
We're recommending retention of the existing, repair of the existing.
Okay.
I have an answer to this is Rebecca Ballo for the record. So looking in the town of Kensington's ordinance, it says, for all setbacks and building lines, the town of Kensington shall follow the laws of Montgomery County except as set forth herein, side yards, unless a variance is granted in accordance with this section. No dwelling or any part of projection thereof erected on land zoned for single-family residential use shall approach nearer than 10 feet to either side of the lot lines, either of the sidelines of the lot on which said dwelling is located or is to be located, or nearer than 15 feet to any other dwelling, subject to the following exceptions: when building an addition with a footprint of 650 square feet or less, one side of the addition is permitted to conform to no less than the existing dwelling setback on that side, or 7 feet, whichever is greater. And then it talks about a sum total. Regardless, I would recommend that they take these plans to the town for a review and have that information prior to coming back for another prelim.
Thank you.
It seems like it's close. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions? Any other questions for staff? If not, we'll ask the applicants to come forward. And please, when you come up, make sure the mic is on and you've filled out forms, but you identify yourself and your relationship to this application. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Samuel. I'm the contractor.
My name's Ed Wesley. I prepared the drawings.
Mr. Wesley, are you a designer, architect, or?
Designer.
Designer, okay. So you're neither of you are the owners?
I don't know how that works.
Yeah, we deal with the owner, yeah.
You're the owner, but you're also the contractor?
Yeah, he cannot come in today or today.
No, wait. Are you the agent or are you the owner?
No, I am the contractor.
You are the contractor, so you are the agents representing the owner.
Yeah, like.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Right. All right. So you can either explain the project a little bit, you can show pictures if you have them, or we can ask you questions and you can answer them. If you have a presentation, you can go ahead and give it, but otherwise we'll just ask you questions.
Yeah, the first thing, they bought the house, but he never know it's a historic place. That's will be a little bit confusing for him now. That's why we tried to do something before, but when we get to submit to the county and we try to go over there, and they say no, you needed to do the historic first. And when we go to the Kensington town, they say it's a big, like a lot of details and everything. But now it's coming too late, and we did a lot of stuff. But I don't know where you can go now. We tried to get something. If it's not possible, probably want to keep it as it is there. Just do like clean outside and do some repairs inside and sell the house, because is for us now when we bought it is like 3 months ago, and I hope you want to take like more. It's the money involved in everything. That's is I don't know where your guys could be allowed us to do it, but I know it's a lot of details. It's a lot of information, and it's my first job, like historically do it. I never did it before. Normally, before we do regular houses, we don't need it to come in like on meeting or something to show a lot of stuff. But I don't know what your guys help us to do or allowed to do. If the new addition we can do different way and we keep the existing like it is over there now, just to fix inside and keep the existing side, the existing windows. Just probably need to change the shingles because the shingle is not looking good. It's some holes, and we can try repair the windows because the windows is so tight to open the sashes. I don't know if you can. If it's possible, maybe we can try put a wood windows. Like I know before we did something like this, like a wood windows, and just try do something on the back is like more easy to do something the new addition, like with the vinyl wood windows or wood siding or keep the same siding. Depend where we can get.
We appreciate your predicament. But yes, you are in a historic district, or the owner is in a historic district. The guidelines for Kensington's historic district will be the starting point, because they will explain to you, those guidelines kind of describe the restrictions you're under, that you have to meet. But you also have to meet zoning regulations, which is the setbacks. And that's going to tell you where you can place this on the property. And I think you need to be looking at that first, because it doesn't appear as if the addition can set where it is. So at that point, then, yes, you can start working on doing something on the addition on the back. But but that is going to be is going to be so impacted possibly by the zoning that's something that has to get clarified first, is where you can actually build on the property.
For the proper line
on the
setback.
property.
Excuse me.
Yes.
We did talk to the town manager, and they would allow the setback as long as we maintained the overall, like 20 feet that we, that was the first thing I asked.
Oh,
was,
so
can we
this-
go, because I said we're 1 foot away from the property line, can we do that? And he says, as long as you maintain 20 overall setback from either side, we'd allow it. Now, I read the exact ruling that was read here, so.
Oh, so it's 19 from one side and 1 on the other. How odd is that?
We'll just need it, if you can provide it in writing. Did you talk to Matt?
I did. I couldn't
That's-
remember his
that's
name.
great.
I remember Alex, but not, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's great. So if you can just provide something from him in
Okay.
writing for us, if this comes back, that'd
Okay.
be helpful.
Okay, so at this point, we ask you questions. And I would suggest the commissioners keep in mind what you've just heard about the lack of information. So frame your comments in that direction, because you will be coming back for another preliminary once you've revised your drawings and pulled more information together. Okay? Anybody wants to start this? Commissioner Dominiani?
Can I start with just one clarifying question? Thanks for coming forward. Did you say that some work had begun as well already, or we're purely in the planning phase still?
It's all in the planning phase.
Okay, great. Sorry. I think I misunderstood. Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Doman?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Doman. I foresee a lot of problems down the road for you. And I don't envy you. I don't know, if I understand correctly, you were not exactly sure when you acquired this property that it was in a historic district, and now you have requirements that you were not anticipating, I gather. Is that correct?
That's
and if I interpret your little narrative here, that you may just push the whole thing aside and sell the property or make some minor changes to it? I mean, are you really intent on doing that? Because you're looking at a lot of work down, you know. One of the comments from, as a testimony was provided, and it says that the recommendation was that you hire an architect. Now, I realize if you're a designer, but we have a lot of people come through here, and there's some architects that are really good and understand how the commission works and how we ask questions and what we require. And if you're embarking on this, an architect would be a big benefit to you right now. You know, you really need to find out what you can do in an historic district, you know, about the size, the massing. There's been some concern about the size of this addition that you're proposing to put on the house. So you have a lot of work in front of you. You know, it's not going to be easy. And you've seen all the discussion that we had that went on just for a porch deck, right? So we had a lot of discussion on the porch deck. So you're going to be faced with a lot of issues. So really make sure that this is what you want to do, and get an architect if you can. That'd be my recommendation right now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, Commissioner Haynes, are you going to have any comments or not this time?
Yes. My comments is surrounding the addition relative to the original structure. And it's a challenge to put a two-story addition on a one-story historic home. I probably don't need to tell you that. But as it currently designed, it feels like there's the historic one-story, and then there was, this two-story structure plopped on the back, and they don't integrate well at the moment. It might just be that the drawings need a little more clarity, but I think the massing of the addition is a bit overwhelming to the one-story house, and I understand you're raising the existing roof a foot, presumably to help mitigate that. But I'm wondering if there's a way to maybe lower the new addition roof line to get a better proportion with the historic resource, and then maybe utilize dormers to get additional headroom on the second floor. But if there's a way to do that. Also, I might ask, have you looked at just doing a one-story addition and just having all the program on one level instead of two stories? You have fairly large property. It seems like there would be room to get all your, instead of doing two stories, just do one level addition to accommodate your program.
One thing I can add that is once we go one story and try to enlarge it, that 650 square feet thing screws up the zoning sidelines sort of thing.
So then you got to put it in, push it in farther.
Right.
How big's the footprint currently?
It's approximately 1,100 square feet.
42 by 28, I think, is the house, or something like that.
It's approximately 1,100 square feet. For the
addition
existing,
footprint?
the existing or proposed?
Proposed addition footprint.
Oh, it's either going to be, let's see, they have two different numbers they provide.
It's a little under 650. We just try to stay.
Yeah, I was going to say it must be.
Yeah, around 650.
Well, so I hear you that it kicks in, a one-story addition kicks in different setbacks. But I think my overall comments is surrounding the massing and getting that a bit more proportion to the one-story resource. I tend to, I mean, there's so many questions, so, but I think it has to start with getting the addition massing right, and then we can build from there. That's my comments.
Okay, so I think I'll finish up here if there's nobody else. First, one question, is the basement apartment existing?
I'm sorry?
Is that basement existing?
It is.
It is, okay. Just wanted to clarify that one. It's kind of odd that it is set back from the crawl spaces.
Well, and if you look at the old site plan that was on there with the full front porch, it's a shorter house. The last 8 feet, which is now the kitchen, must have been some sort of addition.
Okay, that makes sense. That also kind of explains that, the basement shape. Yeah, you have your work cut out for you on this one. Small houses are hard to double in size. And we get a lot of hops and preliminaries through here where people are doubling the size of their house, and sometimes it's a really large house and they're doubling the size. So we feel for you. I mean, we really do. But we do have requirements that have to be met, and that long, long list is just kind of a full-on list of everything you're going to have to do to get this house to a point where we will approve it, okay? There's a lot of different elements of finishes, materials, appearance, existing versus what you want to do new, which we're not going to let you do possibly, like windows and things, taking out windows and putting in new ones. That may not fly with us. So it's really good to do all the homework you can do on this to figure out what we will let you do, and then just go straight for that. I think you really should consider the setback issue and try a one-story and see how that works going backwards. You don't have to think of it more as one of those rambling one-story houses that just kind of keeps going and going and going, and think of it kind of from a new perspective. It would be an easy construction, and you would have to deal with the setback, but it might not be a bad thing if you do rooms on one side with a corridor going down with a lot of glass on it, so they get all the light from the yard. If you insist on doing a two-story addition, it cannot overwhelm the house the way the current one is doing. And so I think you're going to have to turn that roof around so it's a gable end to align with the gable of the first story. That might make it a little less prominent. There's no guarantee on that.
I did it. That's why I turned it.
Okay.
So.
And if you're doing these sketches by hand, I take it you don't have a 3D rendering.
I'm old.
Yeah, I hear you. But I think you need to look at it, and I think you need to. Well, first off, one of the comments was raising the roof a foot.
Right.
We have allowed that in some locations, but it's usually for an attic. It's not for a main floor. So I don't think that's going to pass. But you might look also about how you can get 2 stories in it and not be so tall. So again, you got to really think outside the typical box, because you do have a small house and there's just so much you can add to it or do to it that's going to look normal. I would recommend not only going through
Kensington, but Tacoma Park has a lot of small houses that have been added on to, and most of them have come past us at some point or another in the last, I don't know how long Tacoma's been a historic district, but it's been through HPC at some point, most of those houses. So you'll see how you can be creative with adding on to a very, very small house. And I would recommend driving around Tacoma, or walking around Tacoma is even better, to see how they do it there. But you will be coming back for another preliminary, and you need to come back with a plan that we can say, yes, you can present this as a HOP when you get your drawings done, okay? And you will be doing full drawings. For permit, so what we want to see are the plans, the elevations, we want to know materials, we want to see some of the details. We don't need a whole set of drawings from you, the permit set, but what you show us has to be pretty far down that path anyhow. So by that point, once you get through the next preliminary, that plan is going to be approved by us at the preliminary or accepted, and at that you start your drawings and bring it forward as a HOP. But listen to the staff. They know what they're talking about, and they will guide you in what you need to do, but you also need to do your homework and do your research on what's feasible, because this is a challenging project.
Yeah, I don't want to mislead you. I just conveyed what he and the homeowner wanted. I know everything you've repeated to me, and you're absolutely right. I said, how am I going to get a two-story addition? I'm going, should I do 8 foot? Do I, So it's all there. The one thing I didn't anticipate is how long this could take, and the homeowner is about time. So that was his comment about, because if this takes like 4 more sessions, I'm not sure if he's going to want to invest into that, and basically that's sort of the thing. So
That's a good, that's a,
So, yeah.
you will be doing, your owner will be doing one more preliminary at a minimum.
Right.
And that's assuming that a plan is developed that will be good enough to come through a preliminary. And then after that, when you get the drawings, and they do have to be, the plans you present to us have to be on their way to being permit level, okay, for a HOP. So there will be 2 more, at least minimum, presentations to us before you go for permit. All right? So that's why you have to do all your homework up front and get everything that you have to deal with. You got to deal with a lot of stuff from permit, right, from the county. And then there's all this stuff, because you're in a historic district, the owner has to deal with, because it's in a historic district. And yes, and you as the contractor you're going to have a steep learning curve, but you really do have to get that plan and the elevations sorted out realistically for what's going to be approved, because you don't want to come back here any more than you have to. So it needs to be approvable when we see it next in the next preliminary. If that's it, I wish you the best of luck, and staff will help you, so good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming forward. We do appreciate seeing these, and as you saw tonight, some evenings are really interesting. We get a lot of variety, and tonight's one of those nights when we get a lot of variety.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Staff will provide written comments to you within a couple of days, and the video of this will also post to our website, so you can have everything to review.
All right.
All right, moving on, minutes. I know one person who has read the minutes, and I understand there is a problem with the minutes.
Yes, this is Commissioner Doman. I'm looking at the draft minutes for the May 8th meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission, and on page 3 of 5, under item E, there was a vote taken, and it says, yay, Commissioners Burdette, Pelletier, Nassar, Doman, and Dominini voted yay, and I was not present because I could not vote, so my name needs to be deleted from the minutes. Other than that, I find the meeting acceptable.
Okay, I just want to check something here, now that you say that. Are we sure that everybody, in this list of who voted yay, are we certain that all the commissioners were?
Staff will go back and double check all of that
Okay.
for accuracy. Thank you, Commissioner Doman, for pointing that out. We will make that edit and then edit it again to make sure it is accurate.
So the minutes will be coming back to us. We don't have minutes tonight. Commission items. I believe the only commission item is possibly the letter that on the Great Seneca. Was that issued yet?
I've sent the draft to the county council, and I will copy all of the commissioners on that tomorrow. I just sent it off this afternoon.
Okay. I don't think we have any other commission items, unless I'm missing something. Staff items.
The only staff item is to note again for the record that Vice Chair Burdett will be representing the HPC at a proclamation honoring Historic Preservation Month that the county executive is sponsoring this Friday in Rockville. And nothing else from staff.
All right. Then we are adjourned. And